Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today's Friday morning ramblings video is all about growing cool weather crops. So cool weather crops like the cool weather. They can take a light frost. They prefer 50-degree soil, 60, 70-degree days. Now there's a difference growing from summer to fall or growing from spring into summer. Those are the two times you can grow cool weather crops typically. So now it's August 29th. We're going into the fall. Plants look pretty good. These are some transplants I put in. These are peas I put in about 10 days ago. They're all starting to come up. When you're planting your fall crops or your cool crops from summer into fall, they're going to germinate much more quickly. They're going to grow much more quickly because they have really warm soil. It's usually about 70 degrees. They're having warmer days all the way up maybe into the 90s like we just had for the last week. So there's a benefit. If you're a little bit late to the game maybe for getting your cool weather garden in for the fall, you can start seeds. They're going to grow really quickly. And we're going to go over everything that I planted by seed. I'll show you some dates, talk about the cool weather crops. Plant what you like to. I'm going to try and put in about 150 pea plants at different times over a 2-week period. There's some more peas tucked into there. They're just wonderful. This is a Facing Heavens pepper, by the way. This is what I make my hot pepper flakes out of. It grew really well in about a 10-gallon root pouch, and you can see they turn a beautiful red. Hundreds of peppers on there. They start out green. When you're growing the cool weather crops, keep in mind they can take a light frost, the leaves can freeze, then they thaw during the day and they're going to be perfectly fine. It's when you start getting prolonged periods of cold below 32 degrees, and instead of it just being a frost that affects the leaves, it starts affecting the plant down at the root level, maybe that ½ inch space from the soil here down into the roots. And if that freezes, a lot of plants do get killed off, but certain plants can continue even through heavy freezes, like kale, collards, Brussels sprouts, cabbages. So take notes, because certain plants are going to do better in your zone going from summer into fall, and they will continue to grow and grow. Okay, let's go over to the main cool weather beds that I'm planting. And these are peas that I started as transplants, and they got a little beat up with all this heat. In some cases, I think you're better planting peas from seeds summer into fall, because they grow, if you're growing them indoors, they're used to that indoor temperature or in a shady area, they're doing okay. And then you put them out into the garden and they get hit and baked by the sun. Sometimes they don't really do that well. It depends on your zone. So everything I'm telling you, I can't say do it exactly this way, but I would do a mix. And again, take notes, because I planted some by seed, planted some as transplants, and these should be okay. If you're planting transplants, you do want to put down some kind of mulch. Try and keep that heat from baking the plant roots. They do a little bit better. In here there's some damage. This is from snails, so I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little pellet there. So 2 days ago I put down my slug bait, which is usually a baited pellet that has iron phosphate or it has sulfur. The slugs and snails eat that, in a couple of days they die off. So you want to try and do that a couple days before you put in your transplant so they don't get eaten. But these all should be fine. Spacing, I just kind of eyeball it. Sometimes I'll say like this is spaced 2 inches apart. It's really 4 inches. But you can kind of get a sense. There's my hand. That's celery. Then I have some broccoli in there. And then some beans. So these are bush beans. I still have time. I think my frost isn't going to come to about the middle of October. I think these bush beans will do okay. And then some more peas. And you can see they're a little bit beat up. Doing better than the ones I just showed you. But mix up the different varieties. So celery needs a long time to grow, 90 to 100 days, but it can take a frost. So these have been growing as transplants. These are at least past, let's see, for about 6 weeks or something like that. I mean, they're growing well. I found celery's the best to grow as transplants. I'm in Maryland zone 7, so if you're just getting started now, I recommend going out and getting transplants, something about that size for your broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Kale you could do with seeds, but they're usually with those plants anyway, so If you haven't grown transplants, pick up some kale transplants, collard transplants, get them into the ground. And space something like this. You want a decent spacing so they're easy to tend to. So white flies will tend to come and get your brassica families. So you want to have a strategy. Over here, I have more broccoli, which is what I like, and I also eat the leaves. I'm not putting 2 rows next to each other. I'm leaving them just like this so that there's more airflow. It's easier for me to get in from the sides and spray if I need to and take care of any potential white flies. But another benefit of growing from summer into fall is a lot of the insects will start going away when that light frost hits. Spinach, lettuces, all in there. In this space, that is a white globe radish closest to the broccoli, and then I have watermelon radishes towards the back there. 4 rows. These actually went in on 8/23. I don't know if you can see it on there, but it's only been 6 days and they're already up. So definitely get radishes in. They're going to grow really fast, and you can keep growing these until that hard freeze comes and your ground is frozen. And then along here are shelling peas, and they're just starting to break the surface. That's 6 days. Put them in on the 23rd too. So it's starting to transition over nicely to the cool weather crops. Now, how do you figure out your frost date? We have to go online, go to weather.com or some weather channel, and just start looking for the average frost dates in your area. And it's just an estimate. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get, in theory, 60, 75 days, get these started before that first frost comes. That gives you a lot of time for them to establish. But again, you have time. Don't stress out that you missed it. It's been 55 days or it's 45 days. Certain plants you can get in. Arugula, lettuces, if their transplants can go in at that frost time, they can go in by seed. Radishes for sure. You don't need to have, you know, the perfect amount of time. And again, I'm going to keep stressing that because I think it stresses people out. It's like, well, is this going to work? Should I plant it? And then we kind of get frozen. We don't plant anything. So I would, again, suggest just plant. Start somewhere in August if you're in a zone like Maryland, zone 7. A little bit later if you get to the warmer states, maybe September. And just experiment with it. These plants went in probably 2 weeks ago or so. Those are peas. They're doing okay. I had to put some Captain Jack's dead bug dust on these because they were getting eaten. These are radishes, first wave, that are growing lots of greens. And again, that's because of the heat. When I planted these, it was cooling down, and then it got into the 90s for like the last 7 days, 10 days. And it's okay because you can actually eat, lightly stir fry radish greens, but we'll see if they develop. But you saw that I just put in another planting of radishes 6 days ago, and that's just to kind of figure out what's the best time to get these growing, and that's what you want to do. So you put some in August 15th, you put some in August 30th, you put some in September 15th, and then you can figure out when to start radishes in the fall in your area and how long you can keep going. And you would really do that for all the vegetables. That's the butternut squash area. This was my acorn squash. I have some to pick. You know, the vine borer took it out, but that's okay because I'm kind of done with my summer garden. I got 25, maybe 30 butternut squash that are all going to store well. So it was a successful year for that. I also have tomatoes growing all in that space that seeded into my compost pile. So I may get some late season tomatoes. I'm actually letting them go. What's cool about these is there's no disease on here. They kind of missed the disease period, and I don't know, to be honest, if younger growing tomatoes fight off leaf spot or early blight better than established plants. It's really weird. They're all nice and healthy, nice and big, and then as you walk around you might see some tomato plants that are just really beat up. Right back there is cabbage. That's 45 day cabbage. The other thing you can do is you can look on the pack. Some cabbages might be 90 days. Some cabbages might be 20 pounds to 40 pounds of cabbage. You may not want to grow that. You don't have the space. Get like a 45 day cabbage. I think that might be Jersey, early Wakefield maybe, but there's early variety cabbages that you can get. If you're growing Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, even if the heads don't form well, you can eat the leaves, don't forget that. Beets are doing pretty well. Spinach, this has been happening to my spinach. Something comes and just cuts it down. So that's not really making it. I did put down the slug baits, the snail baits in different places. I don't think that was a snail, that's some kind of different insect. But a little bit of dust on here will help. But again, don't just put in one round of spinach, see that it got beat up and get frustrated. Now that you see that happening, go ahead and put some more seeds down because they'll probably be just fine. Some lettuces popping in there. Wild mushrooms, don't eat those. All right, one more place. Tomatoes are growing pretty well over on this side. I'm taking care of these. One of my goals every year is to really have tomatoes ripening, large size, into September. So I think I'm going to be able to do that. As we get down to the right side, I'm not really taking care of these, letting them finish up. And you can see that they're dying off. Hydrogen peroxide spray helps a whole lot. Sprayed them all. Then I decided to leave these alone. These got a second wave of H2O2 and they look pretty good, so I'll have plenty of tomatoes. Down here in my earth bed, Brussels sprout, and kale. And again, same idea, is it's just one long row. I don't want them all clumped together. Over the years, I learned if I did 1, 2, 3 rows, and then, you know, just had a big 4x8 space of kale, insects would come in. This is the best way to really treat them. And they should do just fine, really. I had kale in here that was coming back that I cut back because it had the cabbage worms, but I had so many transplants, I was like, well, I'm just going to pull them out. So all these transplants are in. They're going to establish this year. I'll be able to eat the greens. The Brussels sprouts should survive my winter. I'm going to be doing videos on putting that polytunnel over these to extend the season well into December. But the kale should survive, and then it's going to come back in spring and bloom and flower, and you can eat the blooms and the flowers. They're absolutely delicious. A couple more beds. Oh, in here, this is my replacement zucchini, doing extremely well. I don't think there's any on there. Cucumbers are getting beat up. There's a beetle out here that's just chewing them up. Dust down in the middle. I harvested off the zucchini, but this is somewhat being trellised up the post back there, and it's doing pretty well. It's nicer to take care of one plant than be jumping around taking care of 4 or 5 plants, and it's producing. This is my ag fabric space, and these plants are really taking off. I prepared the soil well. You can see some Captain Jack's is on there. Just because you put the ag fabric down, don't think there won't be any insects or eggs on the undersides of the leaves from when they were sitting around as transplants. So after you set this up, you definitely want to get in there, put some dust on there, and just keep an eye on them from the start. Make sure no infestation occurs. I can see right in there, that damage is from a snail and slug, so the baits went around here too. But they're really taking off. It's not even September yet, and they look really good. Now, this is in that box pattern that I said to avoid. Because I'm using the ag fabric, it's less likely that, let's lift this up, it's less likely that white flies are going to come in there, or some sort of infestation will come in there. So I can plant them in that square rather than that long straight line. I think I'll have to tend less. And based on the experiment I did over there, that's an old kale plant. You can see I've been pulling the leaves from the bottom and eating them, and it's been doing well without any problems. That's a harlequin beetle. That's what I believe wreaks havoc in your gardens. It just eats anything. All right, last 2 beds. Here are my last 2 beds that I planted, and these might be some plants that you've not heard of. These are great for a cool weather garden. There were tomatoes all in here. I removed them. So right in this space is broccoli rabe. It will grow about to here. Nice leafy green, delicious in salads. It'll produce buds and flowers that you can eat, taste similar to broccoli. These are put in on 8/23, so it's been 6 days, and you can see them right there. And I put them about I don't know, every hand or something like that. Those are tomatoes that are actually popping up, some tomatoes that rotted on the vine. So I will thin these out when they get about this tall, make sure I have the spacing I want. But broccoli rabe is a great cool weather crop. Over here I have Pak Choi, also called bok choy. It's Chinese cabbage. This is toi choy, which means it only gets about 4 to 6 inches. It's a great cool weather crop. I recommend for your bok choys, your pak choys, to plant them as seeds because they bolt really quickly. And if you're not familiar with why plants bolt, it's when the soil temperature gets to, let's just say 70 degrees for the argument. When their roots get to a certain temperature, your cool weather crops will send out a message to flower, produce seed, and that's why they bolt. That's why you can't grow them in the summer. The soil just gets too warm and the plants will germinate. They will grow a little bit of greens, but they often don't really thrive because they want to flower. So growing your pak choi from summer into fall is perfect because they tend to bolt quickly. And as they get established and growing, that cool weather will roll in, that will cool the soil, and they're going to develop nice, heads of cabbage. Now, this is a loose leaf cabbage. It's not a tight round ball, so I would recommend trying it. You'll really enjoy it. Coming around to the other side, some of my favorite plants are in here. Arugula grows really quickly. Again, these are all put in on the 23rd. That's popping up. Right in here, starting to break the surface, is kohlrabi. If you've never grown that before, I highly recommend it. And then your purple top turnips are probably one of the easiest root crops to grow, one of the easiest vegetables to grow, and they're all coming up. They'll all be thinned down to one plant about a hand space apart. Rambling point of the day is try and start your cool weather crop garden 60 to 75 days before that first frost. But don't panic or freak out that you missed it or you don't know when that date is. Get planting, take notes, plant a couple of seeds every couple of weeks, see what does really well. This is the space of my garden that I've opened up to the cool weather crops. Next Friday morning rambling will cover the entire garden. And you can see how much I've opened it up really, put in all the different plants. Nice air circulation, waiting for that cool weather to come. As we spin around, and I tend to always start from that side that I just showed you and work my way backwards. This place is pretty much overgrown, still producing, but I'm going to work my way into here, clear out plants that I don't need any longer, keep a couple of the warm weather crops, get over to those fruit plants. Thanks for watching. I highly recommend the cool weather crop garden. You'll really enjoy it. It's a lot less work in my opinion when that first frost comes, kills off all the insects, it's getting cold, you just have less diseases, less problems. It's nicer to walk out sometimes on a 60-degree day than it is to be out here definitely when it's 95 degrees, 100% humidity. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I do want to announce, pre-announcement, that Callie Kim, who you saw here a couple weeks ago, she and I have started a podcast. It's called Gardening Coast to Coast. The first podcast will be coming out on September 2nd or 3rd, I believe, but you can find it at gardeningcoasttocoast.net, and that's coast, the number 2 coast, gardeningcoasttocoast.net. We'll be doing several podcasts a month. They're all going to be about 45 minutes. You can listen to them in your garden. Hopefully you enjoy them or on a car ride. Again, thanks for watching.